Welcome to Transforming Indian Family Court System. Evolutionary biologists believe that one of the reasons why humans dominate over planet Earth is because we practice dual parenthood, unlike 95% of the mammals in the animal kingdom. Therefore, the family court system assumes a critical role in not just protecting the rights of children of separated parents, but the very future of our society. However, unfortunately, a pan India survey conducted by us reveals that 9 out of 10 legal professionals believe that our family court system has failed our children and is in need of urgent reforms. Therefore, in order to initiate a dialogue about rights of children of separated parents and to formulate a consensus around the kind of reforms that can make the family court system child and litigant friendly, we are inviting legal and mental health professionals from across the world. In this regard, we have with us today an extremely special guest, Justice Deepak Gupta. Justice Deepak Gupta is a former judge of the Supreme Court of India, and prior to that was also the Chief Justice of Tripura and Chhattisgarh High Courts. He hails from the beautiful hilly state of Himachal Pradesh and was the acting Chief Justice of Himachal Pradesh High Court and also the President of the Himachal Pradesh Judicial Academy. Welcome to Transforming Indian Family Court System, Justice Deepak Gupta. It's such an honor to have you here, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. So, going straight down to this, so we've sent you the survey findings about the Indian Family Court System, which are also available in the form of a video. What are your initial reactions to that? Do they worry you? Do they shock you? Do you also subscribe to the viewpoint that 9 out of 10 legal professionals state that the Indian family court system has failed our children and is in need of urgent reforms?
It doesn't shock me. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, I have been part of this system, and there's no doubt that the survey findings are worrisome because most people found, a vast majority found the Indian legal system, the family court system is not suitable. What are the alternatives? In the survey, I didn't find any alternatives, any suggestions as to what are the alternatives. You see, to criticize is very easy, but I don't think so, because when we started the family court system, it was with the idea that there'll be a judge, there'll be a social worker, it'll be a more informal sitting. No doubt, and it has in certain ways helped certain situations. The family court covers disputes, a whole gamut of disputes. Even if a husband and wife are fighting, then the property disputes, everything comes into that, to the same court. So those were the advantages, but there were certain disadvantages, and that is why I had felt when I was in Himachal, then we had resisted the family courts being set up in Himachal. Mm-hmm. In fact, and then we were taken to task that why are you not setting up family courts? Because we found that what was sanctioned at that time, now maybe the position is different, I wouldn't know the latest situation, where only 3 family courts had been set up for the entire state. Whereas for a 125 application, a woman could move a magistrate in a remote part of the state, but if you have a family court, then she has to come to one of the district or divisional headquarters to move the same application. So it was not so good. But I am more concerned with children.
Yes, sir.
This survey deals more with children, and I'm much more concerned with children. It worries me a lot because, and I don't blame the family court for it. Frankly, I don't blame the family court. I blame the judges. I blame the lawyers. I blame the litigants. In a dispute between husband and wife, the children are the biggest losers.
True, sir.
See, after some time when disputes end up in court, because by the time you come to the family court, family negotiations have failed, talks have failed,
Correct.
Unfortunately, in India, we don't have a marriage counseling system, recognized counseling system. Because in my view, that is essential if you have to protect children also. We don't have a marriage counseling system. And by the time you reach court, both husband and wife are daggers drawn.
Yes.
They are willing to gouge each other's eyes out.
Yes.
And they are willing to sacrifice the happiness of their children to satisfy their own egos.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So this is where the role of a judge becomes very important. And I find that judges, go strictly by the old system. Well, if a child, 8-year-old, 7, 8-year-old child says something that I want to go with the father or the mother. Now the
Yes.
child will, in all probability, say what he has been told by the family in which he is living, whether it's the mother's family or whether it is the father's family.
Yes.
Because there will be this discourse within the family, and they will keep sort of brainwashing the child that the other parent is totally evil and the
Yes.
parent who's in charge of you is God incarnate itself.
Yes.
So the
Yes.
child will never tell the court. So that is where I feel the judges must come down to the level of children. When you decide cases of children, you don't sit in, please don't sit. I've always, when I've given lectures in judicial academies, and I've practiced this even as a high court judge, never
Sure.
in court, never in court.
Yes.
Always in chambers, and preferably sometimes not even in chambers. I have even in the high courts used sometimes the judges' lounge or a gymnasium or something, which is a more informal setting, to talk to
True.
the child, to find
True.
out what the child really needs, what the child
Absolutely.
really wants, what
Yes.
is in the interest of the child. Sometimes a 4-year child or a 2-year child will never know what it wants. So that
Absolutely.
is one. The other is that the second very, very important factor in my view is that all of us dealing with these cases must realize that a child has the right to have the love and affection of both parents.
True, sir.
Parents may fight with each other, the child is not at fault.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have even passed a judgment. I have, when I was in Himachal, I have also always never used the word illegitimate for a child. Relationships between adults could be illegitimate or illicit rather.
True.
A child can never be illegitimate.
Absolutely.
When you have a child of a sexual relationship, of a consensual sexual relationship,
Yes.
whether it is within marriage or outside of marriage, as long
Yes.
as the relationship is consensual, then both partners owe something to the child which is begotten out of this relationship.
Yes.
And the child cannot be denied. I'm not talking about property at this stage or anything else. That the
Yes, sir.
child has all the rights. But the child cannot be denied happiness due to the child. The
True, sir.
child cannot be denied the environment which the child deserves from the type of family it has been born in. The
Yes, sir.
child has, as I said earlier, has a right, inalienable right to know and have the affection of both the parents. And this is
Absolutely.
where that brings me to the third aspect, where courts, even while granting custody, one, they take years and years to decide custody battles. And
Yes.
even when they decide custody, they don't look into interim visitation rights and not even to final visitation rights.
Yes.
I had the opportunity of dealing with this matter in a case, with this issue in a matter in the Supreme Court, where
Sure.
I probably that was one of the first judgments of its type, where I said the visitation rights, before you grant physical visitation rights, you must, today you have technology. We are talking across Courtyard or Zoom, or
Yes, sir.
why can't WhatsApp, Skype, why can't the child talk to the parent in whose custody it is not every day for half an hour, 1 hour
Yes.
on one of these social platforms?
Absolutely.
See, supposing the custody is with the mother
Yes.
and the father is a working person, he in the evening may like half an hour, 45 minutes. He may be able to, if the child is slightly more grown up, may be able to converse with child on anything on the subject, which should be which should be freely allowed. Because that will develop a bond between the parent and the child.
Yes.
Because just handing a child is not a pencil. It's not an inanimate object that you hand over the custody of a child from one parent to the other. Supposing a child has been living with one parent for maybe 5 years or 6 years and has been totally deprived of the companionship or company of the other parent.
Yes.
Obviously, the child will not adjust. You can't give him the custody to the other parent and say, okay, now take this child for a week's holiday or something. And these are the orders I see being passed. Now we're handing over the custody. The child is going to be the most unhappy child. First, you have to make the child comfortable with the parent whom the child has not met for many, many years. And then slowly develop it, some visits, telephonic calls, WhatsApp video calls, a few visits, restaurants, take them to a game park and all, and then take them for a holiday. Yeah, that's
So, if I may
basically.
just deep dive into this exact aspect which you just raised, the unfortunate part, what we are seeing is what you called as tutoring and brainwashing of the child by one parent in order to compel the child to reject or hate the other parent. Unfortunately, that's what our survey findings also show. It's present in almost 60% of the cases, or maybe more. Now, if a child has been tutored and brainwashed, what we call as parental alienation. Now, unfortunately, our understanding of parental alienation states no, it's a husband wife feud in which the child has become a collateral damage, so to speak, right, and is being brainwashed.
Sorry.
The world over, if you look at it, whether it's WHO, American Psychiatry Association, judges from the European courts of the human rights, if you look at countries, legislators, they've made it into a criminal offense because it is a form of severe child abuse. The unfortunate part that we in India, whether we look at the judiciary or the legislation, we are looking at it as a husband wife feud. We are not granting the primacy of the child to be protected from child abuse. Unfortunately, that is the biggest problem that we see in our courts today.
I agree with you to a large extent that, as you said, 60%, I would say it's maybe more than 60%, much more than 60%, where the parents don't tell the right, they don't give the right answers to the court and don't tell the truth in court. Having said that, I'm not very certain, and I probably may not agree with you that this should be a criminal offense as is done in some Western countries.
Right, sir?
And I give you the reason why I say so. Finally, the child, as I said, has the right to have the affection and love of both the parents.
Right.
If the child, supposing the mother is told a lie and it's made a criminal offense and she's made to suffer, maybe go behind bars or pay a fine or whatever, or denied the custody of the child, that could
Right.
be one form of punishment.
Right, sir.
Who suffers? Again, the child suffers. Because that mother is telling a lie not because she hates the child, but she's telling a lie because she loves the child and wants the child to live with the mother.
Sure, sir.
So, though I don't appreciate this practice, I don't think criminalization is the right answer.
Right, sir.
We have, in fact, in many fields, criminalized certain criminalize certain actions which are destroying the fabric of society.
Right. I agree with you, sir.
I'll give you an example. If you read the Domestic Violence Act carefully,
Sir.
there is no man in this country, if he honestly reads the act, who can say
Who's not guilty of.
that I have never violated the act.
True. True.
So that is again brings me back to the point of counseling at the first stage.
Yes.
What we really need is there's a shortage of psychiatrists in this country. South India still has some level of psychiatrists available. But
Yes.
in the northern part of the country or even in East India, psychiatrists are not even available for the pain. Even if parties are willing to pay, a psychiatrist is not available.
Fair
Marriage
enough.
counseling is almost unavailable in this country.
Yes.
I have
True.
served in 3 states. I have served in 3 states, Himachal, Tripura, and Chhattisgarh, and I can vouchsafe that not one of them had qualified marriage counseling. It's
Fair point.
only available in big urban cities and metropolitan. So I don't think, I personally feel there has to be a spirit of reconciliation. An attempt by the counselors, attempt by NGOs, attempt by all bodies like yours to encourage reconciliation may not be for the marriage part of it. You see, the husband and wife may decide to live together or live apart. But an effort has to be made that whatever decision they take, that decision can be taken in a civilized manner.
Yes.
If that decision is taken in a civilized manner, then there's no difficulty with regard to children also. Because then they're more, they are more appreciative of the needs of the child. It is the basic problem is that when ego comes in the way and one partner says, I'm going to teach the other partner a lesson.
Absolutely. So,
And this is where I say our judicial system is such, whether it is family court, whether it is I don't know what is the other which could come in the being, who will man it. You see, finally, whatever system you have, any system is only as good as the persons who man the system. Even in the family courts, I have seen judges who have done a wonderful job. And there are others who've done, because if you don't have the empathy,
yes.
if you don't have that sensitiveness for the needs of a child, you may be
Yes.
brilliant. You may be one of the most intelligent judges, but they
Yes.
do not think of the child. So that is where we need to have more judges who are trained, and when I say family courts, I have a problem with the high courts because I find that either they send not so competent judges to the family courts, or sometimes is send all women judges to the family courts.
Yeah.
Both are not the right answer. Identify judges. India has a huge, but Dr. Kapur, I can tell you, in the young judges in India are brilliant. Will now be coming through good tests and all. The judges at the district judiciary at the lower level, they'll rise to the family courts.
Yes.
A judge who's been let's give an example, a judge who's been in charge of juvenile justice for maybe 2-3 years, and on promotion, if that judge is made a family court judge, that judge would appreciate these nuances of the needs of a child much more than a judge who has already only worked in criminal law or on civil law. You have to, that depends on the high courts
So,
and how.
sorry to interrupt you, but just taking
Sorry.
that point itself forward, as I said, so you said right in the beginning that we didn't offer enough alternatives. So let me offer two alternatives right now, and I would seek your comments on that.
Yeah.
One of them is, as you beautifully raised, so the time has come, I believe, that there needs to be a separate cadre of family court judges. At the end of the day, family law is non-adversarial, or at least it should be non-adversarial, right? As you also believe so. And the other law systems, whether it's criminal or civil jurisprudence, the judges to change their mindset becomes difficult. And as you beautifully said, that a number of judges neither have the inclination or the aptitude to actually work on family law and family court cases. A number of our judges. So we need to have a separate cadre of family court judges because it's a very important aspect of law. A large percentage of the dissatisfaction with the judicial system doesn't come from these high profile cases of, like Aryan Khan's yesterday or Arnab Goswami's, but comes more from everyday people who are non-criminals dealing with it. So one is the separate cadre. Second is you raised the point about very rightly that family law is at the cusp of science and law. Therefore, having psychiatrists is a problem, but how about psychiatrists, social workers, psychologists, and similar such mental health professionals who can be made available at a much cheaper cost and much quicker. Therefore, like UK has a body like CAFCAS, which assists the family court judges. CAFCAS is a body of independent psychologists. Why can't we have such a body, sir? So those are the two key things, sir.
Uh, as regards your first suggestion of a separate cadre, I've really not gone into, so I wouldn't like to give my comments offhand. It may have its advantages, it may have its disadvantages. One of the disadvantages, I mean, it has its advantages which you pointed out, but one of the disadvantages would be, where do you source them from? You see, a family court judge comes at the level of a district judge. So where do you get them from? Lawyers? Do you directly appoint them? Or do you appoint them, as I said, from juvenile justice courts? So whether you have a district cadre or whether you have identified in your judicial service, you have some judges who are very, very close. So I'm not totally outrightly saying no, but there will be problems, and I have not really studied it, so I wouldn't like to venture into a topic I've not really thought about. Sure. Second, I strongly agree with you that we need some level of psychiatric and social counseling at the family court level. Because without that counseling, many cases cannot be decided. You may be able to decide a large number of cases without counseling, but when disputes arise, especially disputes arise with regard to the custody of children, who should have the custody? I don't think most judges are absolutely well suited to decide which parent is better suited to have the custody of the child.
Yes.
And in this fast changing world where both men and women are now working,
yes,
both could be working well. Now, which parent would be able to devote more time to the child? You see, then we have this in India, another problem of there being unitary nuclear families. But when it comes to the custody of the child, every family becomes a joint family with the grandparents jumping into the field and throwing the hat into the ring and saying, we also will help in the upbringing of the child.
Sure.
So it's better, as you said, a body but this body must be totally independent.
Independent, absolutely.
You see, and my worry, whenever I've seen social workers, so-called social workers, being brought into these bodies, they are less of social workers and more of political workers. Because the only social work which I'm not joking, but even when you come to whether it's consumer courts, family courts, those people shown as social workers are either counsel, are either lawyers, or they have some links with the political party in power in that state. But if we had a body, as you are suggesting, what happens in many countries across the world, which is a body of independent people who will assist the court only, because they're much better suited than judges to make a proper judgment. Maybe their judgment could be wrong also, I'm not saying that, but they, in all probability, and the judges may not be bound by what they say. It's in all cases, but it will be a valuable evidence to support whatever decision the judge takes. So that, I think, I agree to the second.
So, interest of time, I'm saying, so, if I may ask you, how can we both Mr. Jatin Katira from Child Rights Foundation and I from BambooTree Children have been researching on this for the last 7-8 years. And how can we help the government? Because, see, the Section 12 of the Family Courts Act already provides for it. It is now up to the judiciary, because it clearly states that the High Court and the Supreme Court in consultation can actually go ahead and do this, hire medical professionals, help get social workers together, right? How can such a body be? How can we push the judicial system to make it happen? And if I may be a little maybe beyond my boundaries and say, sir, how can you assist us in making this happen? Assist the children of this country in making this happen.
No, no, whatever. I don't know whether I can really help after retirement, but if I can do if I can be of any help, I'd love to do it. I mean, one of this is to air views like this, disseminate this sort of a discussion in the judicial academies. I don't see why foundations like the Child Rights Foundation or I didn't get the name properly, Dr. Kapur.
BambooTree Children's Foundation, sir.
BambooTree Children's Foundation can't seek an appointment with the Chief Justice or the head of the Juvenile Justice Committee to explain what you have talked about here, and say maybe an experiment start in 2-3 family courts in places where psychiatric help of high quality is available all the time. That why don't you try it as on an experimental basis in these places, right? And if those places work, then obviously it will be taken forward. So that is one suggestion I can make, that you could meet the Chief Justice of at least 2-3 high courts and do that. The second is you could even identify some, there are some judges, family court judges who you may have during your survey found to be very, very, good. All of them are not bad. Some of them are very good. You could talk to them and say that we are doing this not for a particular case. This is a way, can you, if you require, please get in touch with us whenever you require psychiatric help. Also not help, I mean the judge doesn't require psychiatric help, but whenever he requires the assistance of a psychiatrist to assess the needs of a child.
Right.
No, I think that, please, Jatin.
Sir, do you think now there is a time that we should have a presumption of shared parenting set by every family court?
I've not really understood the question, sorry.
Sir, a rebuttable presumption of shared parenting by family court, sir.
No, there can be no doubt. That is what I've said. A child has the right to have the love and affection of both parents. But you see, shared parenting, the concept as it exists in America, is not going to work in India. Let's be very clear. It's not going to work in India. We have to develop our own concept of shared parenting. You see, there they have this shared parenting concept of even morning and evening parenting being shared if you're in the same town and all. I don't think it's going to work in India. But we can always have more visitation rights, more togetherness, where the child gets time to visit both parents, spend time with both parents. If, like, just to give you an example, if the custody is with one and the child is studying in school, in holidays the child can go with the other parent when the school is on holidays. Because this shared parenting of Monday this and Tuesday this, because I've seen some orders from the US, which I don't know whether they'll ever work here, of Monday to Wednesday and Thursday to Saturday. I'm not sure if it'll work here.
So fortunately now studies all across the world, not just the US, so almost about 20 countries across the world, including the European Union, has clearly stated that shared parenting should be instituted everywhere, all across the world. And this is huge number of studies on almost 4 lakh children. But having said that, sir, I think because in the interest of time, just last question. So the Supreme Court today, I agree with you that not one single parenting plan is available for all. Maybe let's say 2 parents who are staying 50 kilometers apart, 2 parents who are within the same town, 2 parents who are in the different states. The child may be less than 1 year old or the child may be more than 6. World over, the courts have created standardized parenting plans, so 10 different parenting plans depending on this thing. Unfortunately, which is taking away a very large portion of the family court's time, because what they do is each case they start almost from scratch. So can't the Supreme Court today create a parenting plan, standardized 10 parenting plans, and various courts across the world have done it?
See, actually, this is not. I don't think the Supreme Court can do it. It doesn't even have the jurisdiction to do it unless it comes a matter comes to the Supreme Court. See, the Supreme Court has no administrative control over any of the courts in the country. It is
Right.
the highest court in the judicial hierarchy, no doubt. But it is the high courts which have administrative control over all the courts in their jurisdiction. So it will have to be framed. Maybe the Supreme Court can come down if one of the committees of the Supreme Court takes up the matter with the Chief Justice. But finally, it will have to be a plan, because even Dr. Kapur, I don't think what will work in Himachal may not work in Delhi. What to talk about Maharashtra? So it is better that each state has its own parenting plan, keeping in view the social milieu of the particular state, the problems that there'll be many situations. There could be two parents living in the same locality, even after separation. There could be two parents living in the same town but in different localities.
Yes.
There could be two parents living in the two different towns in the same state. There could be parents living in separate states. There could be international ramifications. So each, as you say, I agree with you that yes, there should be a template or like if both parents are in the same locality, this is what you should try and achieve. If they're in this town, this is same town, this is what you should try and achieve. And then sometimes the practical difficulties of these facts of each situation will also have to be factored into. You see, you can't decide everything without taking into consideration the facts of a particular case. There may be cases where the court finds that one parent is totally unsuitable.
Sure. Absolutely.
It can happen for various reasons. I'm not going into the reasons, but the court may rightly find that one parent is totally unsuitable to have the custody of the child.
So the only thing that I would just disagree with you there would be to say that unfortunately the courts in today's circumstances don't have the time to even investigate and find out what is the truth. Judges, I'm pained to say that they just don't have the time or the support system to even make that investigation and formulate a genuinely informed opinion.
I don't think there's lack of time so much. I'm not saying maybe in Bombay and all where they're overburdened. In a large number of states like Himachal and all where there's not so much, but they have the time. But they don't have the sensitivity in many places. They take it as another case. It's another number. It's another docket. If I dispose of 10 more cases, they don't look at it 10 more lives, 10 more children. See, it's just that thought which will itself make a lot of difference. And these are not rocket science cases, to be honest.
True. No, I think
I have seen young judges, not so young judges, doing a brilliant job with limited resources just because they were willing to get off their high horse of sitting on the podium or something and talking to the parties on a one-to-one basis in the chamber.
so
Explaining to them in their local language. These are the benefits, these are the disadvantages, these are the benefits. And it's not that all people are unreasonable. Some are, but all are not unreasonable.
No, fair, sir. So I think one of the concerns I also have is that even within the same state, there can be the judges, the socioeconomic and mindset that the judges come from is very different from where the litigants are coming from. Their mentality, their upbringings are maybe very, very different. So unfortunately, what that leads to is a lack of institutional understanding of best interests and welfare. But I wouldn't go into the details of that. And I understand that you have to leave. So I would even request you, sir, I think I would love to discuss with you the parental alienation part, because how we can solve that issue. I agree with you that the person should not be sent into jail and should not be a criminal offense. But if you see various countries, there are escalating levels of fines and, more importantly, therapy. So let's, to just end the discussion from my side, would be, in the normal population, we see 2% of the population having psychological disorders or personality disorders, while in family courts, it's approximately 12 to 15%, right? And those parents can be extremely harmful for the child. And those are the ones which do parental alienation. Therefore, we need to protect the child. It is a child protection issue. But I think if we can someday, whenever you have the time, have you on for another short half an hour discussion, I would be very grateful, sir.
No, we can have another discussion, Dr. Kapur. I'm not averse to that. Let me, we'll check up my calendar and we can fix up a date after 15, 20 days or a month or so.
Sir,
That is, see, and I do agree. I'm not saying, in fact, you say 10, 12%. I think in the family courts, at least 30% become unreasonable, totally unreasonable. There, or maybe more, they become unreasonable because the egos have overtaken reasoning.
True.
Family pressure. I have seen matters where after putting in a lot of effort, husband and wife are made to almost agree, and next day one of them will come and say, no, sir, ye nahi baat banti. And when you probe further, that some family member has said that if you settle matters, then don't talk to me ever again. And these are harsh realities which I've seen happening.
True.
And that is a result of, I mean, it's off the, I mean, not off the record, but it's sort of off the cuff remark. I'll just give you an example. I was dealing with a matter. There was no child involved in that case. Both the husband and wife were highly educated, well qualified. And again, but the battle had been going on for about 15 years and there was a lot of mistrust, there was anger against each other. Somehow I managed to convince.
Yes.
And I said, come tomorrow. I mean, they said, we'll come tomorrow. The next day, the father said, the husband came and said, my mother has told me that if you settle the matter, you don't talk to me again because I was sent behind bars for 1 week in a dowry case which was false. And he says, I can't settle that. I asked the lady, she says, yes, I was advised by my lawyer and my family to file a false case. I still got it to be settled. Then I called the mother and I, asked the lady to, but it was not easy. See, these are issues which have to be dealt with. That's why I feel that marriage cases at the very initial stage, they should be counseled. Whether they may part, but part amicably. Or live together and live together amicably. Here what happens is, some meeting is called for, no counseling is done, they said we don't want to settle, so don't settle, okay, fight. And then one case, the other problem is also the legal fraternity. When a wife comes, okay, now you make a case of divorce. One husband has filed for divorce. Now you file a case for dowry. You file a case for domestic violence, whether there is violence or because he is making 4 or 5 cases, getting more fees. The lawyer is getting more fees, not realizing that in these cases, the more the number of cases filed, the less the chances of reconciliation at any stage. Absolutely. True it is that we are talking about children. But if that angst between husband and wife is not there, then the problem for children will be much less. The problem for children arises when their anger overtakes their reasoning and even overtakes their love for the children. Now it's the time to settle scores and not to settle lives.
True, sir. No, I think those are wonderful final words from you, which is to say, but somewhere I think the courts need to also come down very heavy on false allegations. Somewhere set a precedent of saying false allegation and such false cases see in today's this thing, there is a new and a very, very disturbing trend which has started, which we saw in our survey, of false sexual abuse allegations against one parent of sexually abusing a child.
I've said this is probably pains me the most. I've seen it myself in some cases. They'll stoop to any level.
That is something which I think the courts, I think some judges need to set a precedent and put, like they say, the fear of God, of saying, not just in the litigants, but also in the lawyers and the bar council, of saying this is not done, sir. But thank you so much for your time, and we really look forward to having you again, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kapur. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. It's been a pleasure, sir. Thank you.